Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out today for our webinar, LabelExpo Americas 2024 preview. My name is Kyle, and I'm going to be getting us started, going over a few housekeeping items before I turn things over to our panelists. So the purpose of this webinar today is to cover some of the product developments and preview some of the items that you can expect to see at LabelExpo from Label Traxx and Amtech Software. So you're going to be hearing from a few people today. It will be Grant Emerson, the product manager for Label Traxx, Nick Wagner, sales engineer for Amtech, and Kevin McDonald, who's another product manager focusing on Batched and Siteline. A couple other small items. If you have any questions during the event today, you should see a question section in your GoToWebinar control panel. Just type in a message there. If anything comes up, we'll do our best to go over any of the questions that come through during the actual event itself. But in case we don't, you can expect to hear back from us after the webinar concludes. One other item, it is being recorded, so if you have to drop for any reason, you'll receive a recording after the fact, and if you want to send it to any of your colleagues, you can feel free to do so. Let's briefly go over the agenda here. So first, we'll cover the LabelExpo booth, so where you can find us, what it's going to look like, that sort of thing. And then we'll hop into the actual products themselves. So we'll start off with Label Traxx. Specifically, we'll talk about Enterprise, Cloud API, Scorekeeper for Label Traxx, and Visual Analytics. Then we'll talk a little bit about Batched, including automatic stock planning, work center staging requirements, and the lead time manager. And then we'll move into Siteline, where we'll discuss automated order entry, artwork proofing, secure online payment, and the label configurator. Thanks. So at LabelExpo, it's just a couple weeks away, September 10th through the 12th in Chicago. You can expect to find us at booth 5920 in Hall D. So if you take a look at this image here, you'll see our booth highlighted in magenta there, just south of that main lobby in Hall D. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Grant, who will discuss some of the Label Traxx product updates, and he'll get us started today. And again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoy the time here.
Thanks, Kyle. So the first thing I wanted to do is talk about our enterprise product that supports multi-plant, multiple manufacturing plants within one instance of Label Traxx. So this is something we've been working on and improving for 2 years now, and we have a number of customers using it, and we'd like for you to come and see the product in its current form and talk to us about what it can do for you when you come to Label Traxx, to LabelExpo. The enterprise product is a way to be able to have multiple plants modeled and operating within a single instance of Label Traxx. And because of that, it allows your employees to use a single shared environment, which improves data integrity. It allows for greater visibility across the enterprise. It simplifies your infrastructure and upgrade processes, and it allows you to optimize your resources by sharing resources across facilities and by centralizing and standardizing on best practices. So the benefits that we see and have seen from enterprise include the options that you have for centralizing key functions like finance, estimating, scheduling, customer service, and procurement. You can choose either to centralize these functions or not, and that's one of the benefits also of enterprise, is that it offers you the flexibility to choose between the flexibility of being able to operate the plants separately or to pull operations together into a centralized set of processes. It allows you to route orders, materials, and tools among facilities. And with Batched, you're able to manage capacity, plan stock usage, and optimize schedules across facilities rather than within each facility, which allows you to really reach the benefits of scale that are the promise of having more than one facility. With Siteline, you're able to present your company to your customers as a single company rather than as multiple different facilities or different businesses. Let me say a little bit about our approach for how we have gone about putting enterprise into place. Our goal has been to maintain the intuitive and label manufacturing or label converting focus of the product, while also extending it to support multiple facilities and to support enterprise use cases. And the way we've done that is by taking the existing functionality and the existing resources that exist within Label Traxx and making it so that those resources are connected to one or more facilities. Some of these resources, like equipment, estimates, products, invoices, are dedicated to a single facility, while others are in a particular facility but can be moved between locations. And this includes roll stock, tools, job tickets, and inventory. Finally, there are some resources which are master data that is shared across all locations, and this includes customers and suppliers, stock constructions, and employees. So let's take a look at the application itself. So as you can see, it looks very much like the Label Traxx that you know and love. The key sort of foundational piece is that we've added manufacturing locations. So if you look at constants, there's the new area of constants called manufacturing location, which allows you to configure different facilities, which you can use as the basis for separating your operations into different facilities. Note the second column there, which is a manufacturing location tag or ID. This allows you to easily identify which location different resources exist within, and we'll look more at that in just a moment. Now let's look at custom job tickets. So here you can see that you have job tickets that are in Richmond and Baltimore, and you can see that by the location, the manufacturing location identifier there in that column, and you can filter by one or more of those locations. And depending on who you are as an employee, you can also see only the job tickets which relate to the facilities that you have permission to see. This is generally true, not just of job tickets, but also of other items as well. If we look at tickets here, you can see that the ticket up in the corner there is located in Richmond. And when you create this ticket, you have access to the products and resources that are part of the Richmond location, so that it's just like building a ticket in the non-enterprise version. You can move tickets from one location to another, and that's what we're seeing here on this screen. On the left are the resources that are available to the ticket in its existing Richmond location, and on the right are the resources that you will assign to the product in Baltimore. So when you search for Baltimore, you see only the presses and pieces of equipment, tools, rewinders, and stock that are available, stock constructions that are available in Baltimore. Great. So I would encourage you to come and talk to me about the enterprise product. We can talk about the capability to move your content from multiple locations into a single instance. We have a dedicated migration tool built into the product, which allows you to do that in a regularized and high quality way. Next, I wanted to talk about our cloud API. This is a tool that is a productized REST API that sits in the cloud that allows you to maximize the value from integration between Label Traxx and the rest of your business, either business processes or business systems that sit outside of Label Traxx, which are your best-in-class processes and tools outside of Label Traxx. And it allows you to connect these things so that it fits with the particular requirements of your business and allows you to use these tools along with Label Traxx so that the data and processes that are inside Label Traxx aren't locked away, but are easily accessible or available to you. The Cloud API is a documented API. We have an online documentation portal based on Swagger, which allows you to see all of the calls and documents the calls and responses. You can use this documentation tool to make connections between, to actually make live calls from the documentation tool, either to your own instance of Label Traxx or to a demo instance of Label Traxx, so that you can try out and test the calls before you write a line of code. The initiatives that we have worked with customers on include order portability, that is being able to move job tickets from external ERPs into Label Traxx or between Label Traxx instances, and also to be able to move orders from external e-commerce systems so that there are tickets and packing slips created in Label Traxx and shared back with the e-commerce system. And finally, we've done enterprise application integrations with customers, including integrations with CRMs like Salesforce and HubSpot, accounting integrations for AP, AR, and cash integration, and finally for sending packing slips from Label Traxx to shipping applications so that enterprise shipping applications have all of the information that's inside Label Traxx so that there can be effective coordination with your LTL provider. Next, I want to talk about two different products that we're adding to the Label Traxx suite from Amtech, and both of them are pretty exciting. The first one is called Scorekeeper. It is a new platform for shop floor data collection. It's a centralized system which connects to your different shop floor devices, your equipment, presses, and other pieces of equipment. It is works with the AutoTraxx collection wheels, and it allows for the same kind of automated production capture and reporting that we do within Label Traxx natively, but it also holds that data and allows you to report on it separately to capture the data, not just for material use, but also for productivity in pieces of equipment which have pass-through of material rather than consumption of material. And it allows for the presentation, real-time presentation of the operation of your different machinery on billboards or dashboards that can be set up in your plant to show what is happening in real time at your different production stations. Second, we're taking our existing data warehouse tool and adding the AVA visual analytics product from Amtech on top of it. And this allows us to use the continuously updated data from Label Traxx into the data warehouse to present pre-built business intelligence dashboards, static reports as well, and to provide a set of tools for being able to modify those reports and dashboards or to build your own reports and dashboards. And we're building database views into the data warehouse so that it is easier for you to connect the existing tables and concepts and make the generation of your reports easier.
So I know, Grant, some questions that I've seen previously about visual analytics here are, what does exportability look like for these types of dashboards that we're looking at with this visual analytics tool? Can they be exported to things like a CSV file, an Excel file? Is it possible to automate and send those exports, or do you need to log in to go view the live data? Could you speak a little bit to those different points?
Sure. So, the simple reports and the filters that get you to a simple report from the dashboards can be exported as Excel, as PDF, or as CSV. So we do have that capability as well, and this can allow you to see the reports, but also to share those reports in a format that's usable by folks who are offline or not using the tool directly.
Perfect.
So I'll hand this over to Kevin now, who can talk to us about the product updates, which are going to be what we'll show at LabelExpo for Batched.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. Appreciate it. So one of the concepts that we've been hearing loud and clear with Batched is that we really wanted to place some additional focus and emphasis on a lot of the planning and pre-production activities that are happening upstream before we even get to scheduling. So we've been working hard there, and the three things we'll talk about today all kind of emphasize that same theme. So the first kind of feature set in Batched that I wanted to talk about is automatic stock planning. And so essentially what we are hearing from our customers, hearing from you guys, is that material allocation and purchasing of material can be really a manual process, time consuming, and then especially as we get into the complexities of managing material ordering for multiple locations, or trying to handle and categorize and understand when we have substitute materials, substitute stock constructions or substitutable widths in inventory. It can be difficult to get visibility into that. And then finally, it becomes, as things are changing, it becomes an added difficulty for purchasing to be communicating with scheduling to make sure that everybody in the plant understands, if material will be there on time to follow the schedule. And so our main focus was solving some of those issues with this feature. And what it allows us to do is actually programmatically look through what stock constructions and widths are in roll stock inventory, which of those are available on incoming purchase orders and when, and it compares that against the open tickets that are needed to be produced, and soft allocates that material against those jobs to ultimately give purchasers, production planners, et cetera, a really quick and easy view into which of my jobs do I not have material for, or which of my jobs is it possible that material might not arrive for in time. And so it really focuses their day-to-day activities on that subset of material that needs to be triaged, that subset of jobs that needs to be triaged. And we've kind of been building on this functionality over the past couple months as well, and allowing them not only to set up and allow automatic stock planning to make substitutions, whether it be stock constructions or suggest different widths, but the purchaser or the production planner themselves can actually go in there and make those overrides manually if they want. If they have exceptions, they can handle that. And we've also introduced the ability to set up your own minimum inventory levels, maximum inventory levels, and reorder points for different stock constructions and widths. So we've heard that for a lot of like the high moving stock constructions, it's very common that we won't be ordering those on a job by job basis. We just want to keep some amount in our various widths and inventory, and so we allow for that configuration as well. And then the feature set will actually suggest or notify and say, hey, here are some stock constructions and widths that you've just dipped below your minimum desired inventory level, and it suggests that they create those purchase orders and reorder. And kind of on that same vein of focusing on the pre-production is there's a very kind of tried and true process for understanding if we have within the facility all of the physical requirements to produce a job. So we've got proof approval, we've ordered material or tooling, inks, that sort of thing. But from that point until we're actually ready to physically produce the job, there's a bit of a black hole as far as our pre-production staff. What should they be working on, and what order should they be working on it in? And are those physical requirements actually ready and staged at the appropriate machines so that operators can execute on the schedule? And so we wanted to give them a home and batch so that based on where tasks and where jobs are being scheduled and in what order, they understand exactly what physical requirements need to be done and when and where, so that operators can execute on that schedule. And in addition to that, it gives the production planning team much better visibility when they're looking at the schedule into where potential issues might arise, or where operators might be held up from being fully utilized because we don't have those physical materials in place yet. And so what we've done with the production staging requirements is we'll actually go in and associate what physical requirements need to be present to produce a job at any of our given work centers, and then based on where jobs are scheduled, on which assets those jobs are scheduled, we actually generate a staging requirements report, which is kind of the schedule for those pre-production employees. And they can then go through essentially a checklist within Batch to mark off, that artwork has been ripped to the press, or material is staged, or we've gathered up tools and cylinders and plates and gotten those ready for the operator. So all of that can be marked off. It communicates back and forth with the different scheduling views so that we get visibility in all different areas of the organization as far as which jobs are ready to be produced and where we might need to triage in order to still execute to our schedule. And then the last of these items that we wanted to show off and that we're excited to talk to you guys about at LabelExpo is our lead time manager. And so this was a a really big overhaul of the machine availability visualizations that we had previously. And one thing that we're really hearing is that it's very difficult to make sure that everybody in the organization has the same understanding of where our machines are bottlenecked and how does that affect our lead times. And you know, because of that, a lot of times we're feeling like we're reacting to issues rather than being proactive, solving those issues proactively. And you know, just the nature of the business, as jobs come into the system, those lead times can change very quickly based on new sales, based on volume. So sometimes having just a weekly staffing meeting or a daily staffing meeting isn't going to prepare everybody for what happens later on in the day. And then, you know, it's always kind of playing catch up to communicate with customer service, with sales, with production, how we're seeing those lead times change and if we need to adjust our behavior accordingly. And the lead time manager is dedicated to giving that visibility across the organization. So we have different views for production that give them a lot more detailed information than we do for customer service and sales, which kind of give them just the highlights that they need for their day-to-day. And it also gives us some additional tools to play with when calculating our lead times that we didn't have before. One of those that I'd like to highlight is our reservations functionality, which is essentially set up to allow production planners to input large orders that they know are going to be in the ERP soon, so we can account for that demand, that incoming demand in our lead time calculation, even though we haven't actually gotten those job tickets created yet. So especially if we have, you know, if we're fulfilling recurring orders, if we know we have large orders coming in at certain times of the week or month that we want to model in the system, we can do that and account for those in our lead time calculation even before they're in the system. And we've also added some additional tools from the capacity side of the equation, allowing you to set up and configure, you know, by equipment minimum lead times with you know, rules for exceptions that we're trying to achieve, targeted utilization percentages on machines, so that we know, you know, based on your shift, we really should plan based on some smaller percentage of that for what we actually plan to utilize. So it's given us a lot more functionality to present those important metrics, you know, the lead time and where we're backed up to present that to the organization in a real live manner.
I know, Kevin, one of the questions I've seen around the lead time manager is when we think of batch, there's that concept of scheduled tickets where these jobs are production ready, our schedulers plan for them in the schedule, but then there's all of those jobs that you mentioned before that have all these pre-press requirements potentially. When we talk about lead time here, is this all encompassing of all of our scheduled tickets and unscheduled tickets, or is it only a subset of that?
Yeah, it is all encompassing. So we're looking at every job in the facility that's going to need to be produced, regardless of whether we're able to actively produce it now or if there's still some requirements that need to be done before we can. And we're accounting for the time it's going to take to produce all of those jobs and comparing that against not only the time that we have to produce them, but when they're due. And with all that information combined, essentially outputting and saying, like as this visual is showing, you know, our targeted lead time, our external lead time there is 15 days. That's what we'd like to hit. And our actual lead time based on, like you just mentioned, all the jobs in the facility is 9 days. So we know that we still are hitting our targeted lead times and that we can proceed with, you know, quoting those dates on incoming orders as we have been doing. We know that we're below our targeted lead time.
Great.
And now moving on a little bit to some of the exciting features that we've been working on for Siteline that we'll be able to kind of show off and demo at LabelExpo. And the first one of those is automated order entry. And the feedback that we're getting from was that you know, in a lot of cases, our customer service teams will get POs from our customers that can sometimes have, you know, 20, 30, 50. We've even seen up to 100 line items or products on an individual PO, and that just ends up being really time consuming for those CSRs to then, you know, they're kind of turning into copy and paste experts to get those job tickets created in Label Traxx. It leads to you know, potential for errors, obviously, when you're transferring data like that. And then in a lot of cases too, the customer that's submitting the PO isn't going to, you know, have any concept or inclination to group those products in any logical manner, and so it falls then on the CSR to parse out how should those products actually be grouped into the job tickets that they're creating. And so that can just create a whole mess of problems. And what we wanted to do with Siteline was really streamline and make that process much easier. And so automated order entry, we actually use an AI tool that can intelligently look at the purchase orders. We'll train it to look at different types of purchase orders, pick out the products on those purchase orders, and auto-magically group those together and create the job tickets in Label Traxx. So the same way that you would go through the process of adding products to a cart and checking out in Siteline, you can just upload the PO. It'll create those products in the cart and the appropriate job tickets, and same thing, you can check out and those job tickets will be created in Label Traxx. And then we're always trying to enhance and build on the artwork proofing and the collaboration features that Siteline offers. We think that's a really important mechanism for working with our end customers in an efficient and faster manner, and it benefits our end customers as well, as they get better results from working through these workflows. But artwork proofing in and of itself is inherently time consuming. There's a lot of back and forth emailing. A lot of times it requires, you know, more than 2 people communicating. Lots of other individuals need to be involved in that process. And so anything like that, just really email is not really set up to work with a kind of back and forth communicative process like that. And so we're putting our CSRs in a difficult position, you know, collaborating on these artwork proofings all through email with multiple different customers. You know, if new individuals need to be pulled in halfway through the proofing process, all of a sudden they have to go back through, you know, a big email chain and kind of catch up to speed. And then if ultimately we ever have issues with the job once it's out of proofing and into production, same thing, it's very difficult to you know, track down amongst hundreds or thousands of emails in our inboxes who made the final approval, was it the correct artwork file. All these are issues with the traditional proofing process via email. And so we really wanted to emphasize on the collaboration tool within Siteline that is really set up to eliminate all of those problems and streamline the process. So some of the additions that have happened to that collaboration tool are you know, allowing us to invite both internal Siteline users, internal organization users, but external users as well, whether that be from the customer end or manufacturing reps that need to be involved, who don't even need, you know, Siteline accounts. It's very easy to just send them an email link and they can hop right into the collaboration chat and provide their inputs. It logs all of that chat history, all of the files that have been shared back and forth, you know, who is approving files at what point. So that's all archived and logged in any particular proofing event. So it's very easy to go back and reference and read through that chat history. And then also being able to, you know, change approvers if you know, mid-proofing event, being able to say, hey, actually we have a new individual who needs to approve this, or change the role of any of the proofers in the event. So still adding on functionality that helps to improve this process. And like I said, we're excited to show that off at LabelExpo. And then one of the other exciting additional features that that we're working on addressing is essentially a reliable method for customers who might not be on terms with you to still check out and increase your revenue via Siteline. And so specifically, we're hearing that in those cases, ultimately it would usually fall on either somebody in accounting or CSRs to be following up with these customers that aren't on terms to track them down. A lot of times the use cases that they have a lot more volume, but they tend to be smaller orders. And so imagine, you're always following up on 10, 20, 30 of these orders, trying to track down payment. It just becomes a headache, especially if, we're dealing with customers that might have a card on file. For some reason, that information has changed, the billing address has changed, the card is expired, and now we can't bill them like we're typically used to. And so we wanted to use this secure online payment feature as a way to address those issues. And what we've been working on that we're going to show off at LabelExpo is actually giving those end customers the ability to check out through the Siteline cart with a credit card. And so we'll have, site settings and customer level settings that the Siteline admins can go and configure kind of some of our preferences around that, whether we want to just authorize the card as they check out and bill them later once we know the full amount. Do we want to capture that amount immediately upon checkout? Some different choices there. And then providing additional screens within Siteline that give accounts receivable users and site admin users the ability to go and track all of those online payments. They can wait and verify that as we've captured those payments and they're hitting our bank account, that we're matching those up, and then actually being able to bulk select those records that we have validated that we've received money for and push those cash receipts into Label Traxx from Siteline. So really streamlining a lot of that process and making it so that we're trying to reduce the number of hurdles that our customers have to jump through in order to place orders with us. And then the last thing that we'll talk about, certainly in more detail at LabelExpo, but that we're excited to show off is this idea of our customers being able to get quick and reliable quote information and really as soon as possible using Siteline. So especially when we have simple labels, it could be added effort to the estimator to have to go through the process of estimating those jobs and providing back quotes to customer service or sales to then give that back to the customer. And for the simpler digital labels, why not essentially skip over that process and allow the customer the information to input the information that they have and give them a quote back the same way they would have gotten through Label Traxx immediately in Siteline. And so the label configurator actually allows the customers to input some of the basic criteria of their order, and the site admin, the printers, we give you the ability to kind of configure what options are available to the customers, which are required, what do they need to input, and then Siteline takes all of those inputs, feeds them into Label Traxx through estimate templates and custom product templates that we help you guys set up. And then when the customer actually clicks on get prices, they get estimated prices immediately in the UI there without having to go through the typical workflow. Yeah, thank you, Nick. Yeah. And so we're really excited about this, especially as we get more and more customers who maybe are more educated as far as what they want in their products. It's just encouraging them to place orders quicker and removing the barriers of getting those orders into our system. And then, yeah, I think we've got some time so we can go through, Kyle or Nick, maybe we can go through some of the some of the questions that have come in and use some of the additional time towards the end of the webinar to answer some of those.
Yeah, thanks. Nick, I see that we've been answering some of these questions directly to folks. Are there any of these that you'd like to go ahead and cover now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I see one from Jeff regarding, and Kevin, you can help me out here with this one. The question is around automated stock planning within Batched. Will Batched write back any data currently to Label Traxx in terms of the material status, roll stock allocations? I think where this drives to, Kevin, is kind of the difference between Label Traxx hard allocations and then a Batched soft allocation. Could you maybe give a little bit of context around what that means?
Sure. So the short answer is we won't be writing any of that information back to Label Traxx. So some of the benefits from that are essentially eliminating the manual process of having to go ticket by ticket and update those stocks, the stock status drop down, you know, to nothing's happened, it's on order, it's in. That all essentially gets assigned automatically now by Batched, and it can be viewed in the batch reporting. As far as the individual role allocations, automatic stock planning is doing a soft allocation. So it's just aggregating and looking across all of the stock constructions and widths, how many jobs do we have for each, and then comparing what we have in inventory to say, you have enough or you have enough on order, or you don't have enough, you need to order more. If we're doing individual role allocations, that would still be done in Label Traxx. However, you wouldn't have to be going job by job and saying this is in and allocated. You would just be doing your allocations if you're still doing that, whereas automatic stock planning would be taking care of that other portion and giving the purchaser and the scheduler the visibility in the UI to see these are in, they can be scheduled, or these are in and on order, they can be scheduled, or this subset is out, you know, I need to take action on those.
Great, thank you. I think in terms of the Q&A there, then from the ones that I'm seeing right now, I think, oh, looks like maybe we got another, nope, not just yet. Yeah, I think that, Kyle, from our side, I think we've gotten through most of the questions. Any additional ones that we might have time for, we'll definitely make sure to follow up with the individuals that we weren't able to get their questions answered and go from there.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So if you want to go ahead and proceed, yeah, thank you. So just as a reminder, at LabelExpo, September 10th through the 12th, we'll be there the whole time. You can find us at booth 5920. Big thing to keep an eye out for in this case, you'll notice that the colors and the branding, you can keep an eye out for Amtech in that way. You'll still see the Label Traxx logo. All of that just might look a little bit different. So yeah, again, 5920, and then if you want to go through, yeah, and beforehand, if you want to book a demo, whether it's for, you know, whether you're going to be at Labelexpo or even outside of that, just send an email to Nick, who is here, one of our panelists, at nwagner@amtechsoftware.com. And I think that concludes for the webinar. Again, thank you all for coming out, and we hope to see you at the actual event itself. But if not, send us a message and we will respond. All right, thanks, folks.